Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And in today's video, of course, got the boxing and MMA news. If you are new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do need like video, and let's get straight into it. So, starting off with the boxing as per usual. So, Sokolowski has received a 3-year ban after a positive drugs test. Gwyn is set to fight Marsili. SX versus DTG, Wet versus Grace, Swarms versus Taylor 2, and Sophapi versus Slim will fight October 14th. That prime card is looking very stacked. To be fair, looking like it is the best Misfits cards they put on yet. Tamagawa won via split decision versus Yokoyama. Nasukawa won via unanimous decision versus Torres. Guga won via TKO in round 7 versus Magramo. Nakatani won via unanimous decision versus Cortez to remain WBO World Super Flyweight Champion. Taraji won via TKO in round 9 versus Butler to remain WBA Super and WBC World Light Flyweight Champion. Just to go through that card, I'm going to try to do that more now, just to say what the results were, and then go through the card and unpick it. So Nasukawa, I'm a fan of him. He's coming. Obviously came into the boxing scene with a lot of eyes on him already, of course, of what happened with him and Mayweather, as well as what happened. He was already a big name in general in Japan, and he's coming in and he's looking good. I'm a fan of his style, and I'll be interested to see how he deals going through the rankings with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Olaskuga, it's good to see him back to winning ways. Another good dominant victory, like I said, back to winning ways for him now, and showing that he's still up there with the best, and he's learning very well with every fight, and he's only had a handful of fights really, and so he's developing very well, and a good stoppage for him. Nakatani, complete domination, very good showing from him, and remaining champion against a tough competitor, but one which I predicted right, and I did think that would be the case. And Taraji, TKO in round 9, Butler, like I said in my prediction as well, he's tough, he's game. To be fair to him, he was fighting well. He won maybe a round or two early on and was looking good early on, but Taraji is just too much. Like I said, he was going to build into the fight, going to look good, and did end up just outboxing Butler. And I don't really know how much more is left for Butler, but it wouldn't surprise me if he probably ends up having another fight after this. Just because of how much it seems like he loves it and how game and tough he is, and no discredit to him. A very good fight from Taraji though. Be interesting to see where he goes on to next. Moving on, Yoka has teamed up with Charles. Davis is set to fight Barroso November 18th. Petitjean versus Azim, and Signani versus Denny will fight November 18th. The BBOFC have ordered Flynn versus Baker 3. McKenna versus Tedley, Simpson versus Macias, and TKV versus Amatovic will fight the 30th of September. Sanchez is set to fight Alexander September 30th. Ramirez is set to fight Espinoza November 4th. Misfit boxers are now classed as sub-pro boxers. That's the category that they've been put in. I don't even know who put them in that category, but that's what it's been classed as now. Charlo may fight Benavides Jr. November 24th. The EBU have ordered Seslak versus McCarthy. Crawford versus Spence Jr. 2 is set at welterweight. That might change if there is some sort of document in writing. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but it seems like for the moment it's set at welterweight, and it wouldn't surprise me if it does change though. The IBF have ordered Lopez versus Abe. Marshall has been given champion in recess status by the WBC because I believe she has an injury at the moment and she can't fight her mandatory, and it means that Green's been moved up, I believe, to a regular champion. Might be wrong with that, but means that she might end up having a fight for a vacant belt now. Metcalf is set to fight Milan. Fisher has won Boxing Writers Club Best Young Boxer of the Year. Diaz, Machino, Sandoval, Stevens, Kaliopu, and Verdusco will fight October 21st. Bentley may fight Heaney November 18th. That'll be a very good domestic fight. Jade won via unanimous decision versus Weekender. Shame to see Weekender lose, but she put up a good showing, a good fight, and just wasn't her. She didn't get the nod on the night. Jay won via split decision versus Arif. Bunker won via unanimous decision versus Belzy. Rose won via TK in round 4 versus Izzard. Silva won via KO in round 1 versus Davis. Raksu won via unanimous decision versus Halal Ham. Temper won via TK in round 1 versus Ginty. Corleone won via TK in round 1 versus Uguay. Virgo won via TK in round 3 versus Chalmers. And speak more about that card. Jay looked very good in his fight. He looked very explosive and looked like he had a lot of potential, and I think there's going to be some good entertaining fights with him. Bunker, good to see her manage to get a victory now on the big stage. She's a champion now as well, Misfits champion, and it was against all the odds. A lot of the people went against her and she delivered. Rose, very good TKO stoppage versus Izzard. Silva, very good stoppage. I was very much a fan of him. He showed a lot, had a lot of pressure on his shoulders and showed it and delivered with ease. Obviously it wasn't the best of opponents, but the way that he was feinting and the shots that he was throwing, and the one which ended up getting him out of there, the feint to the body to go to the head, was very impressive and showed a lot. And in my opinion, we could see some big things from him in the future. Will be interesting to see if he sticks down the Misfits route or not. Obviously on paper that's where the money is, but I'm sure there's lots of big fights he could have, and if he even wants to go down some sort of actual boxing proper route, then there's definitely avenues for him to go down as well. And he looks very good, entertaining as well, and following in his father's footsteps to an extent. Obviously not in MMA but in boxing. Rose won by Raksu, unanimous decision. Solid, good performance from him. Like I said, prediction right. I didn't go through my predictions. Jade Weekender wrong. Jay Arif wrong. Bunker Belzy wrong. Rose Izzard right, I believe. Silva Davis right. Raksu Halaham right, I believe. Temper won via TK in round 1 versus Ginty. I think I got that right. Easy performance from Temper. A lot of people didn't think he'd be able to get the stoppage, to be fair, but he's just showed levels above Ginty. Corleone won via TK in round 1 versus Uguay. Got that right. Corleone looks he's a scary guy. He's a big guy. There's lots of big fights. Is there? I don't know if there's lots of big fights, but I feel like he's going to be the person to beat in the heavyweight division for Misfits, and I feel like there possibly in the future could be some big fights available if they find the right people for him. And Virgo, very good performance from him. I do like him as a fighter. I think he's got potential. I don't know if he realistically should be fighting in Misfits because he's better in my opinion. Chalmers is tough, but Virgo is better and he looks good. I don't know who he'd fight next, to be completely honest. He keeps talking about Mayweather. I don't know if that will ever end up happening, but either way, a good solid win from him as well. Moving on, Artiga won via unanimous decision versus Vega. Estella won via TK in round 1 versus Ramos. Ko won via TK in round 2 versus Evans. Ben won via unanimous decision versus Orzuko. Velasquez won via TK in round 8 versus Sumaro. Williams won via unanimous decision versus Rolls to remain IBF North American middleweight champion. McCaskill drew versus Ryan. Hitchens won via unanimous decision versus Zepeda to become IBF North American, WBC and WBO NABO super lightweight champion. Speak a bit more about that card. Ben back fighting again, showed definitely classic signs of what he's about and shows that he does hit hard. Obviously he couldn't get the stoppage, but people are talking about, they're joking about, it's because he's not on any drugs anymore. But to be fair play to Orzuko. I feel like I'm pronouncing his name wrong. But it was a good showing from him. He's very tough, and very game, and took a lot of big shots that a lot of fighters wouldn't have been able to take. And obviously Ben's moving up in weight. He's against a bigger guy there, and that will of course play a factor, and he managed to deal with it well. He fought well. It was a dominant victory. It's a couple rounds which he lost, but still a dominant victory, and good to see him back in the ring. I am a fan of Ben when he's fighting. I like his style. I think it is entertaining and is a tough style, and not many fighters fight like that, and I am a fan, but hopefully we can see him in in a big fight next. Ryan McCaskill draw. It was a real shame to see. If I'm being completely honest, I haven't watched the highlights because I couldn't find them anywhere. DAZN, I don't think they've released them yet, but from the sounds of things, Ryan should have won. McCaskill looked good but didn't do enough, and it's a shame to see. I'm sure Ryan will get the rematch, and in my opinion, my prediction is right because she should have won. So but of course I'll have to go and watch it as well. And Hitchens, good performance. People calling it boring. It's always the case when fighters step up. It's can come as a shock to certain fighters. It can become reluctant at times to really show too much, and because on such a big stage, of course, it's first time headlining. But it's still a solid performance. Cepeda's always a tough fighter. He's a game fighter, and he's been at this high level for a long time now, and he knows what it's about. And he put on a good show in Hitchins, still showed his ability, and be interesting to see where he moves on to now. Probably shows that he's not quite ready for the top level yet, but possibly in a few more fights. Moving on, Noakes won via points versus Barabas. Yumbi won via KO in round 1 versus Nazarian. Fletcher won via TKO in round 4 versus Tapia. Itoma won via TKO in round 1 versus Bichetta. Barney Smith won via points versus Gomez. Taylor won via TKO in round 8 versus McIntyre. Yard won via KO in round 2 versus Silva. O'Leary won via unanimous decision versus Gardner to remain WBC International Super Lightweight Champion. Zhang won via KO in round 3 versus Joyce to remain WBO Interim World Heavyweight Champion. And I just want to, of course, focus on that big fight there. Zhang Joyce. It was a very good showing from Zhang. It was interesting to see how it played out. In my opinion, I didn't expect it to be so one-sided, so dominant, but Joyce, it didn't really seem like he had much of a game plan, to be completely fair. He came in much heavier than normal. Was that a good choice? In hindsight, probably not. He looked very reluctant to throw anything of note, and then what's the point in coming in with all that extra weight if you're not going to do that? Obviously, there was still demons there. He wasn't, in my opinion, ready to go into that rematch. I don't feel like he was in the right place mentally to go into that rematch. Straight away, you could see that he was reluctant and didn't really get going at all. And Zhang knew what he had to do, knew that he could just control the fight. I mean, realistically, people are talking about Joyce's head movement and lack of it, but to be fair, Zhang hasn't got much either, so he's still there to be hit, but Zhang's just quite good at imposing himself, and when Joyce can't impose himself, or in that case really wasn't, then he struggles, and Zhang did what he had to do, managed to get a very good stoppage as well, clean shot which he landed it with, and it's going to be interesting to see where both fighters go now. Zhang talking about fighting Fury. To be completely fair, it wouldn't surprise me if that fight happens after the Ngannou fight. I would maybe like to see Zhang fight again, because it could take a little while to happen with, of course, Fury fighting Ngannou, and then he probably have a break for a bit knowing him. But you never know, so we'll have to wait and see. And Joyce, there's the fight with Dubois there, or he rebuilds himself and then comes back again. I feel like there's possibilities for him to rebuild himself, but you have to get that mental side right first, and then you can progress from there, and that's what I need to see from him now. Moving on, Shelley won via KO in round 4 versus Granham. McGuigan won via points versus Courtney. Stanbury won via points versus Morale. Chambers won via points versus Mooney. Clegg won via points versus Yahya. Hennon won via TK in round 1 versus Garces. Frimpong won via points versus Sampson. Algaina won via stoppage in round 9 versus Prosper to become Southern Area Super Lightweight Champion. Denikayev won via unanimous decision versus Abid to become English Super Lightweight Champion. Pauls won via TK in round 8 versus Frison to become English Middleweight Champion. And of course, got to give a congratulations to both Algenia and Pauls. Two good performances, very good performances, and good to see them both being champions, rightfully so. And yeah, that is all the boxing news. Moving on now to the MMA news. McBroom is set to fight Perez. Prohaska will fight Pereira November 11th. Edwards versus Covington and Pantoja versus Royval 2 will fight December 16th. It's going to be a great card, that, from the looks of things. Can't wait for Edwards versus Covington 2. Such a big fan of Edwards, and I mean, I like the entertainment side of Covington, and we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. I'm sure the press conferences and all that will, of course, be interesting. Wood will fight Naimov October 21st. Pimlet will fight Ferguson December 16th. Thompson will fight Rakimov December 16th. Parkin will fight Machado November 18th. Rendon won by unanimous decision versus Vidal. Inoue won by decision versus Goldie. Usman won by decision versus Collier. Brundage won by disqualification in round 1 versus Malkoon. Means won via KO in round 3 versus Fialho. Johns won via decision versus Argueta. Jourdain won via submission round 1 versus Ramos. Battle won via submission round 2 versus Fletcher. Rodriguez won via KO in round 2 versus Watson Gomez. Mitchell won via decision versus Ige. And Gamrot won via KO in round 2 versus Fiziev. Shame, to be fair, for that main event. Fiziev was looking good. Obviously, he suffered a bad injury. It was nothing really that Gamrot's fault. I'm sure there will be a rematch. Hopefully there'll be a rematch, because that was shaping out to be a very good fight, and there was a very good fight which I saw on that card as well. Rodriguez, Watson, Gomez, that was a great performance from Rodriguez. Very dominant, looked very spiteful, and I was a fan of that, very much so. A good KO from her, and I'm sure there's going to be more big fights coming for her if she's fighting like that. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.